Hey, everybody. You are about to hear a brief retelling of the movie Street Kings. Enjoy the movie. Detective Tom Ludlow can't get enough of drinking and driving. In a parking lot, he met with Korean gangsters to sell them a machine gun, but the product is not the same and the seller is a racist. So the Koreans get angry and beat up Tom. After they stole the car with the machine gun in the trunk, at the same time we see the poster. The Asian twins are missing. The provocation succeeded and soon Tom found where the car he had stopped with the GPS tracker. He opened the trunk and pulled out his gun and body armor from there. Tom kicked in the door and immediately opened fire on the bandit, the other one he had sentenced in the restroom. Tom was shot in the side with his gun. He went around the gangster and shot him in the back. The last to go to the other side was the naked masked guy. With that done, Tom drank some more vodka. Now he needed to make it look like he had to use a gun. Next, Tom entered a room covered with polyethylene. There were two 14-year-old girls sitting in a cage. When they saw their savior, they burst into tears. Reporters and the rest of the unit arrived on the scene. There was a conflict between the cops. Captain Vander had to separate his subordinates. He left Tom alone in the room and began to praise him for his excellent work. Except that he smells of vodka, so Tom better get out of here as soon as possible. Outside, the detective is approached by a cop. Washington condemns Tom for executing gangsters without trial. He's probably just a racist and has a different attitude toward white criminals. In the hospital, Tom drives the nurse away from him because he is waiting for Nurse Garcia, but in the meantime, some man is talking to him. He recognizes the hero who saved the two girls today. The stranger asks how it happened that the schoolgirls were looking for the whole city, but found only him. Tom found out he's talking to Captain Jason Beeks from Internal Affairs. Sister Garcia, who turned out to be his girlfriend. Tom came to a party of cops. Captain Vander got a promotion just because of the twins. Tom recounted his encounter with Bix. He wondered why Internal Affairs had taken him on specifically. Santos accused Tom's former partner of being a snitch. Vander and everyone else confirms it. Washington met with Bix more than once. He's getting revenge for the captain kicking him out of his department. Tom flares up and wants to confront his ex-partner on the spot, but they sit him back down at the table. Tom continues to get drunk and keep an eye on Washington. The man stops and walks into the store. A heated Tom had already wrapped his belt around his arm, but changed plans when gangsters with handkerchiefs on their faces drove up. With a pistol, he slid into the store, but there he was disarmed by Washington, who was expecting an attack. At that moment, the robbers rushed in and shot the clerk. Tom began to shoot back without looking and accidentally wounded Washington in the back. The bandits riddled the cop and immediately left the store. From the wounds Washington received, died on the spot. Soon Captain Vander drove up to the scene and gave Tom a judgmental look. He watched the videotape of the fight between him and Washington. The fight made it look like Tom was in cahoots with the thugs, and he could drag the whole department down with him because of it. The captain takes the gun away from Tom and promises to do everything he can to get him out of the mess. And for starters, he'd let his subordinate take the disc with the recording. Tom arrived at his girlfriend's house and began to lament that he could have saved Washington, but did nothing. The next day, the captain showed an article that said Tom arrived after the shooting and didn't have time to save his comrade. So he had it all worked out. Vander will transfer him to another division for a while until things settle down. Tom will have to work in Internal Affairs and listen to accusations from victims towards other cops. Biggs recalls that his former partners often used force when dealing with suspects. He interrogated Tom about what happened at the store. The thing is, 3 different caliber bullets came out of Washington. Although there were only 2 shooters, and it's interesting to videotape. As usual, it was Captain Wander who stood up for Tom. Biggs hates him because Vander spent 20 years rising through the ranks through blackmail and intimidation. He's the real deal. Wander started blackmailing Bix. He caught him with another gay guy. I wonder if his wife knows about his affairs. Soon there was a funeral ceremony for Washington. The widow didn't want to talk to Tom. At the police station, he approaches a young detective who is investigating the murder of a policeman. He wants to know the caliber of the bullet removed from the body. But Detective Discount won't talk to him. So Tom goes to corner himself, the same specialist who worked on his wife's body 3 years ago. He had 18 bullets on his desk from Washington's body. One of them was a .38 caliber, hitting him in the shoulder blade. Tom confronted Discount again, who admitted to covering up for our hero. But because of this, Washington's killers will also escape punishment. After all, if they are found, they will testify that Tom was in the store before the shooting. That's why Discount lines things up to save the alcoholic cop. DNA from 2 criminals, Freeman and Coots, were found at the scene. Those 2 are total scumbags, heroin dealers, and rapists. They had already been picked up by the Vice Squad, but then Washington ratted out the cops for violating the rights of the detainees, and the scumbags had to be released. Ironically, he was killed by the dudes he once saved. Tom is going to personally deal with these 2, but Lieutenant Clady asks his colleague to forget about them, saying that today they are suspects, and tomorrow they are already corpses and Tom should not worry about them. However, the detective does not calm down. In the middle of the night, he arrived at the home of Captain Wander. Tom asks him to let him personally kill the bastards who killed Washington. He will deal with them as with those Koreans. But Wander asks him to back off, because Biggs is just waiting to nail him to the wall. Discount calls Toma into the bathroom to talk about Washington. That one was dishonest. They found $50,000 on him and a tag from Doc's HIV, a kilo of heroin. Instead, he returned a kilo of sugar to the vault, and it turns out that it's not so bad, because the dirty cop got screwed by his associates. Everything goes too smoothly. Discount agrees to help Tom figure out what's what. They find the suspect's last address, but there's a family living there now. The 2 move on to the local gangsters, who should know where to find Freeman and Coots. One of them went for the iron through the yards. Discount ran after him, but fell behind the man. Tom, however, ran after him, and when the bandit climbed to the roof, threw a chair under his feet. He fell off and got tangled in the barbed wire. Zivchik asks to take him down. The wire cuts his body, but Tom is in no hurry to do so. He needs to find out where the suspects are hiding. The cop pulls live wire on him, and he has to give him the name of the man who knows it. His name is Grill. The cops went back to the car, leaving the perp hanging on the wire. Next, they raided Grill's apartment. Tom slipped him pills and a bottle of mustard. The recidivist is facing a life sentence, but Grill is bullish. Then Tom recalled the old methods and started beating the big guy with a phone book. After receiving a few more blows to the head, Grill said that Fremykovska has long been chased away from their territory. Their whereabouts may know one criminal, but he is sitting in central prison. Tom started blackmailing Grill. He's gonna have to get information out of this man. To do that, he'll be temporarily locked up. The detective meets with the widow again and tells her that Washington had $50,000 with him, but Linda denies that her husband was involved in any dark deeds. That's why he turned to internal affairs. His eyes were opened and he became an outcast among his own. The couple had already sold their house and were about to move to the Bahamas, but the husband was already in the crosshairs. Lieutenant Clady came to Tom's house and gave him the bullet he had accidentally fired at Washington. Tom called Grill. Where are those 2? He can tell him one authority, Scribble. It was not difficult to find him, but Scribble is afraid to give up these 2. They are full of scumbags and will bury him. Besides, he has not seen them for a week. But once they met in a shack on the outskirts of town. The cops are there, blood everywhere, but the bandits themselves are nowhere to be found. But Discount smelled a cadaverous odor. There was a piece of a bag sticking out of the ground, hiding the decomposing head of one of the bandits. The bodies had been buried in the same grave a long time ago, and the bandits couldn't have killed Washington. Now we need to find out who pinned the murder on the dead guys. The police from the Vice Squad have a party. The captain tells how badass Tom was from the beginning of the service and knocked people down, even for loud music. In case something happened to him, Tom gave Linda the tape of her husband's murder. He talked about how his wife died when she cheated on him. A vessel burst in her brain and her lover left her for dead on the sidewalk outside the hospital. That's when he started drinking. Tom promised he'd avenge Washington. Squeak was contacted by a man who introduced himself as the late gangster Freeman and set up a meeting. Tom is going to deal with the real killers of the cop and ask Squeak to go home and forget about everything. However, the latter is not going to jump off. He is ready to lynch the bandits together with Tom. The partners are confronted by Bix. Tom finally spoke out. Yes, the internal department hates him, but only he will go where others do not stick and do what needs to be done. In the car, Tom ordered his partner to replace the breech bullets with burst bullets. They would enter the building, ask a couple questions, and kill them all. Squeak agreed to take the cops down with the scumbags. They are met in the apartment by some type and immediately point a gun at them. The other orders him to lower the barrel. Tom offers the thugs to cooperate. They recognize the cop. He was in the store when they shot Washington. So he's here for revenge. Suddenly, Discount yells out that he knows these two guys and gets shot in the neck. During the gunfight, Scribble was also wounded. The scumbag forces him to get a gun and kill the cop. But Scribble refuses and his back is riddled with machine gun fire. Tom got out from behind the couch, turned off all the lights and blinded and shot one of the thugs at point-blank range. The other one he pinned against the wall with a refrigerator and also shot him. Unfortunately, the young cop was mortally wounded and died in Tom's arms. The detective arrived at his girlfriend's house, who met him for some reason. In tears, she turned on the TV. The news was saying that Tom Ludlow had just killed 2 sheriff's deputies who were working undercover. Minutes later, fellow subdivision officers rushed in and arrested Tom. In the car, they finally figured out they killed Freeman and Coots. Took their DNA and pinned Washington's murder on them. They also took the heroin from the vault, but the worst part is that Captain Vander was in charge of the cops the whole time. Those 2 deputies also worked for them and they were supposed to kill Tom, and now they have to do it. Reluctantly, Tom got free of the handcuffs and started to tear DeMille's cheek with them, but the car had an accident and Tom was knocked out. He woke up on a hill where Freeman and Coots were already buried. Tied, Tom began to crawl somewhere. The villains decided to play a game and began to fire at the ground around him. Smoke came up to the guy. He didn't expect the victim to resist. But suddenly Tom grabbed a shovel and chopped the cop on the head and shot Santos with his gun. At the same time, Lieutenant Lady was beating Linda to get her to confess where she hid the disc. After finding it, he was about to jump the woman, but Tom came in and broke his arm and handcuffed him. Wander's next. Tom pretends he doesn't know the captain is involved and asks him to fix his problem. Vander texted Clyde and asked him to kill Tom. Except that the detective had his phone, but even now Vander doesn't give up and tries to work things out. Tom Special and the rest of them are far away from him. A fight breaks out between them. Wander tries to strangle Tom, but he breaks his finger and chains him to a ladder rail. Vander begs not to kill him. The captain pointed to a wall behind which was hidden a huge amount of cash and compromising material on all the officials. It helped cover Tom himself, because he'd done things that others weren't allowed to do over the years. "You were my friend," Tom said, and executed the criminal without a trial, as he had always done before. He waited until the police got here. Biggs was the first to arrive, and his theory was that the dirty cops had split the loot and killed each other. Biggs realized Tom was the only one who could lay a hand on Vander, and his calculation worked. "You said it right, we need you,"